from the outside. I approached Peirce from someone who had been brought up in the Saussure tradition through French structuralism, notably Claude Lévi-Strauss, with whom I studied. Lévi-Strauss brought me in contact with Greimas, Algirdas Julien Greimas, when I wanted to do a PhD. He could not direct a PhD. Lévi-Strauss was a professor at the Collège de France, but Greimas was at the École des Sciences, Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales. And that's where I came in contact with explicit semiotics teaching in the seminar given by Greimas, and I worked under him for many, many years. So when I encounter Peirce, it is when Peirce was being publicized, and I would say rather popularized, by the like of Jakobsen, Roman Jakobsen, and Thomas Sebeok, among the European semioticians. Now, Peirce was not unknown, because in Italy, Rossilandi had done a lot of work. I think he had translated Morris, for instance, Charles Morris. And so Peirce's idea were there. And in France, Gérard Deledal in Perpignan. But these people were somewhat marginalized with respect to the Parisian mainstream, whatever that, you take it for what it's worth. But I was in this Parisian stream. And from my experience later on with people who were philosophers actually specializing in Peirce, they consider that the popularization that Roman Jakobsen had undertaken was really a caricature of Peirce. Because I would say the folk version in semiotics was a trichotomy index icon and symbols. But these Peirce specialists with whom I was in contact in Toronto were showing me, oh yes, but you see here, Peirce says that all symbol is also an icon and an index, and all index is also an icon and a symbol, and all these can be that and that. So these are only models, these are only concepts. Now, when the teaching becomes dogmatic, and when you teach students, this is that, etc., okay, it's a first problematic move. And then when you say doing semiotic consists of identifying index symbols and icon, and various categories of icon and so on, what have you done? What kind of knowledge has been produced? And this is the main question which I like to raise with my colleague semioticians, which are, I would say, enthusiastic proponents of Peirce, is when you apply Peirce to a problem that you try to solve, what do you produce? You produce a discourse, yes. You certainly produce a text. But what kind of knowledge have you produced? Is there any new information? We should first of all make them discover the type of questions that we raise, the type of problems that we have when we are confronted to the diversity of, I would say, meaningful behavior, meaningful object, and so on and so on. Now, the great problem in doing so, because it's a big challenge, was raised by Greimas on a very provocative manner, and it is the following. Greimas thought that you could study meaning only as long as it is articulated. And for him, it was articulated in language. It was a form of, in my opinion, a form of Kantism. Immanuel Kant tells us that we cannot have a knowledge of the thing in itself because everything appears to us through the category, a priori category of time and space. Now, Greimas was telling us that you cannot have a direct experience of meaning except if it is articulated fundamentally as a narrative structure. It is a narrative structure. The fundamental semio-narrative structure is a priori form. And then he was raising the question, very explicitly in the preface of Du Sens in French. He says, since we study meaning with a meaningful discourse, we will never be able, in fact, he said, in order to talk about meaning and say something meaningful about it, we would need a meaningless discourse. This, of course, is, in a way, akin to the famous paradox of the incompleteness, the paradox